to Bruce DelValle. He is a constitutional law expert and joins me from Washington, D.C. Bruce, how far do you think we're likely to see the January 6th panel go in investigating Trump's role in this? And are we likely to ever see him possibly take the stand? And what would be the significance of that if he did?
That is a great question. I think the last part of your question is something that not a lot of people are asking themselves. As far as how long can this select committee last, it really can only last as long as this Congress lasts, and that's until January 2022. So once this Congress is over, a new one starts again, and all of the committees and all of the assignments and all of the prior work has to be redone. Many people feel that the Republicans have a very good chance of taking back the House. I'm not sure what will happen. I think many people on the Democratic side want you to believe that as soon as if the Republicans get into power, because that's their campaign message, and they are campaigning, trust me, that this will all be dropped and it'll be swept under the rug. I don't think so. I think it will continue, but it will continue in a much different way, in a way that I think bespeaks an intelligent legislative process instead of what's going on now with the January 6th subcommittee hearing. It's essentially a long-running campaign advertisement. The Democrats are essentially saying, look at us, we're good guys, they're bad guys because they are all Trump, we're not Trump, vote for us. And that seems to be what's going on. My real problem with this, and I think many people's problem if they look at it closely enough, is this was a crime. It was a horrible and heinous crime. It was a serious act. It brought me to tears. That was an attack on the people's house. That was an attack on our democracy, the cradle of our democracy, and the things that we hold most dear and the world looks to. However, it was not a political act. President Biden's speech today continued to politicize this event. That's what Joe Biden does. He has always piggybacked on crime to make himself more popular. But he needs to stop doing that. He needs to stop pointing the finger at Trump. He needs to quit talking about Trump. He needs to be the president. He needs to act above this. This is not a political event. January 6th was not political. It was a crime. It was a horrible crime. The largest investigation in the history of the FBI is currently being undertaken to investigate this crime. President Biden and the Democrats need to let them do their job and to stop politicizing this event. By the way, if they were thinking clearly, they would understand that if they politicize it and make it an us against them, there is going to continue to be unrest and a divide. If this becomes what it is, an investigation into criminal acts, almost no one can support the criminals. But if you make them political figures and you clothe them in a political ideology that is contrary to yours, then you make this a political act and you continue to divide the country.
Right. And certainly the country is divided enough to begin with. Bruce, a Washington Post University of Maryland poll found 69% of Trump voters say Biden was not legitimately elected in 2020. That is a large swath of America. How has this harmed due process in elections, in just the belief that many people have that the election process isn't legitimate?
I think we've always had a problem in this country with elections. It's the thing that we hold very dear. It's what our democracy is. We actually have gone to war. We've gone to war in Iraq and Afghanistan to permit people to vote, the famous purple fingers. Yet, in most modern elections, fewer than 65% of the electorate has voted. So I would suggest to you that a lot of these numbers, first of all, if someone identifies themselves as a Trump voter, you have to ask yourself, did they vote? If all of these people voted, I think Trump would have won. So the poll is what it is, but it is a large number, and I am quite surprised that people still believe it. It's nonsense. It didn't happen, and there was no proof that it happened. But it's something that he continues to bang on, President Trump, because it's a political theater drama piece for him. He paints himself as a victim. He becomes sympathetic when he's a victim. Trust me, I've spent time with Donald Trump. It is very difficult for him to make himself sympathetic. It's almost impossible. But with this narrative, he can do that. So it is sobering, but I would caution that a lot of these polls are skewed at the outset. And frankly, most people in America just don't vote. Not most, but a good percentage just don't vote. So it is a sobering number. What does it do to due process? I would be hopeful what it does is it makes people want to vote. It is the highest duty that you have in peacetime in the United States is to vote. It's your job. It's your duty. It's your government. It's your country. It's our country. So
Right.
we have to preserve that vote. So I'm hopeful that in the long run, it will make people want to vote more on one side, so Trump doesn't get back in. On the other side, so the Democrats can't steal another election. Whichever narrative you want to believe.
Sure.
Neither are true, but whichever one you want to believe. I am hopeful, but I tend to be a little more optimistic than I
Right,
perhaps should be.
whatever it takes to get people out to vote, I guess. Bruce,
Absolutely.
what are the consequences in the wake of the attack of Trump and other Trump supporters, excuse me, being banned from Twitter and other social media platforms?
Well, I think that's another discussion. I mean, the Section 230 protections of social media, they were preserved as infants, and now they're the dominating tech giants, and they have immunity. So they can ban people, and they ban people for reasons that make no sense. But what it does is, in a way, it empowers them. Again, it makes them more powerful because they can sell the narrative. Just as the Democrats are selling the narrative of the Republicans are parties of criminals, they want to overthrow the government, they want to burn the Capitol, the Republicans are selling the narrative of the Democrats want to take control, they don't care about you, it's big government, it doesn't matter whether you vote or not, they get to choose who the leaders are. So they're both telling a narrative, but the narrative is political theater, and the people are just the pawns. The interesting question to me is was Donald Trump behind all of this? Or was he what I believe is he was just the unwitting dupe that happened to be there at the wrong place on the wrong day, and he incited something that was probably already going to happen by these far right-wing extremists. I'm not going to call them domestic terrorists, but that mindset existed long before there was a Donald Trump. Look at Timothy McVeigh. He blew up the Murrow Federal Building. He believed the same things as the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers believed. So those people were always out there. But I think Donald Trump was sort of a hapless imbecile, a dupe that happened to be talking into a microphone on that day when this was probably going to happen anyway.
Okay. All right. And we're going to leave it there from now. Bruce DelValle, thank you so much.
Thank you.